Hi everybody. Let's talk about Andy's Toy Box. This is another one of those MSP problems that kids saw a couple of years ago. Now it's a release item. And we can use it to practice. So we see here that Andy, I'm going to read this first to try to understand what's going on. Andy has a toy box where he stores his building blocks. If Andy puts 24 of these blocks in the toy box, what percent of the toy box is full? So it looks like he's putting some in there. He's not filling it up. It's going to be like partially full. I'm going to go back and read this again with a little more attention to detail. It says that he stores his building block. Okay. If Andy puts in 24 of these blocks, okay, so he's putting in 24, what percent of the box is full, right? So that's essentially asking us a fraction. We're going to find a fraction, and we're going to write it as a percent, right? Fractions and percents, two ways of writing the same thing. It looks here like one building block is 1 cubic centimeter, right? 1 centimeter cubed. So we're talking about centimeters here, okay. And I know that volume is what I use to measure how many cubes can go into a prism, right? How many cubes fit inside a prism. So I'm going to start by trying to find the volume. And we always start by finding the volume of a box by thinking about its base layer. How many cubes can fit in the bottom layer of this box? Now, this box says it's 4 centimeters tall, and I know each of these cubes is 1 centimeter, so it means I could probably stack 4 of them up, right? So I'm going to try and make this drawing look like about 1/4. So 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, right? So I tried to make it look like it would fit 4. All right, how many cubes can fit here? It looks like 4 cubes because that's the length of the prism, and the width is 6, so I can fit in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you're drawing, drawing these can be difficult, and it's not terribly important that you get your drawing perfect because you can always use the numbers, right? The numbers tell us that this is going to be 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many blocks are there in that one base layer, right? Just to remind you, we find that by multiplying 6 times 4, and that makes 24. Now, if I counted from my drawing, I would count 24. Now, your drawing might not be that neat, and sometimes it's hard to count, so use the numbers, use the math, right? All right, so he fits 24 blocks in one layer. I'm going to go back and reread this. Remember, this is a loop. You're always going back and reading as you're working. It says that he puts 24, hey, look. It says that he puts 24 blocks away, and I just drew 24 blocks. It looks like he fits in 24 blocks is one layer. So I start to see my fraction here. How many layers are there in this box? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 centimeters high. And I just put away 1 of the 4 layers. So it's 1/4 full. I guess I could find out what that fraction would be as a percent. Most of us probably know that 1/4 is 25%, but if you don't, right, remember to find a percent, you want to multiply this by a factor so that your fraction has a denominator of 100. Percent is out of 100. So let me multiply my numerator by the same factor. 4 times 25 is 100, so 1 times 25 is 25 hundredths. That is 25%. So it is 25% full. Now, that is a pretty clever way of doing this. I think most people, though, would find the whole volume, right? They would do 6 times 24. They would do the width times the length is 24 times the height, right? 6 times 4 times 4. And that comes out to be 96. So the volume is 96, and that's centimeters cubed. And Andy put in 24 centimeter cubes. So there's a fraction too. This fraction looks a little harder to turn into a percent. Now, what happens is a lot of people end up trying to divide 24 by 96. But there's got to be a simpler version of that. Instead of doing 24 divided by 96, can we simplify this? And the answer is yes, right? Even if it looks hard, you can see they're both even numbers. Divide them by 2, and we would get 12 out of, what is that, 48. And those are even. We can divide them by 2 again, and we would get 6 out of 24. And we might start to recognize at this point that these numbers, oh, I can divide both of these by 6. And look what happens. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 24 divided by 6 is 4. We come back to that same fraction of 1/4. I hope that's not behind the Doseri sign. But we get 1/4. So even if you found the part that he stacked, right, the part of the number of cubes that he put in out of the total volume, we can still change that fraction to 25% if you simplify it. Okay, so there's two ways of solving that. One is just looking at the base layers, and the other is comparing the volume that he stacked up out of the total volume, right, and making that your fraction. Okay, I hope one of those works for you. Good luck.